Sandra Feen, you were appointed Ohio Beat Poet Laureate 2022 through 2024. How did that affect your career, if any, if at all?
Well, didn't exactly affect my career. I've always had my hands in poetry in one way or the other. It certainly has been an immense honor to be affirmed in this way. But I will tell you, it has been such, I I think even more importantly, it's been such an emotional, um, synchronistic type of affirmation to me because to be part of the National Beat Poetry Foundation and to be just happily locked into that community means so much to me because my mother was born in Connecticut. I have happy memories of a childhood of going to Connecticut in the summertime, seeing my grandparents. I still have beloved cousins in Connecticut. My parents were married in Connecticut. My father is, obviously I'm in Ohio, and my father grew up in Ohio, and my parents spent their entire married life in Ohio, but they were married in Connecticut. And so I have roots there. And it's interesting, just last summer, I buried their ashes in Connecticut because my grandparents had bought a plot for them years ago. So there's a lot of emotional things going on there for me. And so I've always felt that my heart and my home was in Connecticut as well.
Well, I see that you've done a whole lot of things in poetry, but it's nice to have that title in the resume too, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Oh, absolutely. I, I can't believe it. It's kind of the Academy Award in the poetry world, you know. It's very lovely. It's humbling. It's humbling. Still can't get over. I have to pinch myself that I've been given that.
So, you're the co-host with James Bryant uh, on a show called Muse's Mike. Tell me something about that.
Oh, that's talk about another honor. I feel so honored to co-host with James Bryant. What a spitfire of a man. He's so smart and so interesting. And I co-host with him. He has done a number of shows to honor artists, and he asked me to do this to kind of help him out because he's blind, but you wouldn't know that he is. I mean, he's always 10 steps ahead of me. I have a hard time keeping up with him, but he's asked me to kind of help him out with some things that might be a little bit difficult for him, but nothing's ever difficult for him, so it's kind of a joke to me. But I'm happy that he asked me to help him because I enjoy his company so much, and also I was struggling with keeping up with reading, especially my father passed away a little over a year ago, and he had dementia, and I was very much part of his caregiving. And I wanted to be more immersed in the reading of other writers. And so, what we're doing on the Muses Mic is we're interviewing writers and other creative artists. So, I thought, well, if I have to be accountable each month for reading, if it is a writer, reading their work, but if it's an artist, I still have to do research on the painter's work or on a dancer and what they're doing in the dancing world. I know that I've got that homework and I have to have myself together and know all of that by the last Wednesday of the month. So it's kind of helped get me in gear and read more. So it's been very enjoyable.
Do you choose the guest, or does James, or both of you, or how does that work?
We share that joy. We share that joy.
Okay, in 2023, you created a workshop called You've Got the Beat with another poet laureate, John Burroughs.
Yes.
How did that go? How did you conduct that?
It went really well. It was, we did this through the Ohio Poetry Association, and we did this in Columbus, and it was something that folks showed up for, or they also were part of it online. I I kind of put on my old teacher hat, and I really got into to the lesson planning of it. That was one of the things I really enjoyed when I did teach, was getting into lesson planning. And John, even though John was not a traditional teacher the way I was a traditional teacher at one point, he could very well have been, because he's a natural at it. We shared the load of that, and it was generative. We had folks write and try to model other beat writers, but we also, more importantly, had an emphasis on the history of the beat writers and knowing more about who they were. And I was especially interested in folks knowing about women beat poets and also artists, some of the other key painters during the movement, and some of the other contextually other things going on in history during that time. So it was really a joy to work with John and to do that. And I learned a lot more than I knew originally. And I also wanted to showcase Debbie Kilday, who is the CEO and head honcho of the National Beat Poetry Foundation. It was important for both of us that people know more about Debbie and why she created the organization. She wants to preserve, the importance of knowing about the history, but also it's important to her to continue, creating a legacy of new beat poets and new writers, and embracing non-traditional poetry, while and other types of writing, a memoir and so on, while also really focusing on writing that does not romanticize a life of destruction. And unfortunately, that was something that was part of the traditional beats. And she very much tries to adhere to not embracing that focus.
You were in a poetry troupe called Concrete Wink. Did
Yes.
you perform together as an ensemble and take parts in each other's poems, or how did that work?
Well, and we're still thriving and together. That's Chuck Salmons and Ricky Santer and I. We we will approach it in a variety of ways. We will have a reading, and we will share our poetry individually, but we will sometimes do collaborative work. And we also like to focus sometimes on with a thematic vein. For instance, last summer we had a reading at an art gallery, and we focused on a lot of ekphrasis work, poetry written in response to art, sometimes poetry written in response to photography. And we even had a show in response to some of my own photography. That was really fun. And we sometimes, we really like to have, if possible, have a set often at the end of a reading focused on poems that deal with attitude in some way and how we respond to that. Quirky poems that have something to do with attitude in some way.
Would you like to
We
say,
really enjoy that.
would you like to say a word about your photography? That's a serious pastime with you, isn't it?
It really is. I'm getting to a point where my photography is becoming published almost as much as my poetry is. And my current book that is out right now actually has a photo that I've placed on the front of it. It's a rock on Martin Avenue on the west side, which is integral to the meaning of the whole book. The beat writer Robert Frank talked about how important it was for a photograph to have the essence of humanity within the photo in order for that to be birthed into the world. And I find that if I'm going to take a picture of something, that's very important to me too, which I think that's very important in birthing a poem. And I believe that all artists feel that way as well, that the essence of humanity needs to be a part of whatever art you're creating. And so that's kind of the way I go about it. And often I will uh, write about my own photos and or other people's photos. And I found it to be very therapeutic to take photos and to preserve a lot of things that I want to remember
Mhm.
through photography as well as poetry.
So, I saw a note about poetry therapy. What have you done with that?
Oh, I've actually done quite a bit. Poetry therapy, Freud himself said not I, but the poet. And it really, in some ways, began with Freud. Freud believed that poetry possessed such healing qualities. And even Ben Franklin, he was the first to have a hospital in the United States, in Pennsylvania, that used the creative arts to help heal people. He believed that even, and I really believe that poetry possesses healing qualities. And I even used a poem, or I found I proved it to myself that poetry could heal myself. I don't know if you want me to quickly share what I mean by that. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. You're
Uh,
muted for some reason. Oh, there you are. Well, when I was 12, my best friend died. She died of Rice syndrome, which is a rare disease. And from age 12 to 20, I was plagued with dreams nightly about this friend. And I really, it was very much disrupted my sleep. And I finally said to myself, this is just too difficult for me. And I decided I had to write this problem out of my system. So I literally sat down and I free wrote everything that could come to my mind about this friend. And then I tried to hone it into a poem. And through that process, I discovered what was really plaguing me. And it was the fact that I felt guilty because I did not say goodbye to this friend of mine. The very last time I saw her, we were walking home from school together. And there was a point in the neighborhood where I would go to the left to get to my street and she would go to the right. And a group of girls literally kind of ransacked us, that came upon us that day unexpectedly and started chatting and talking with us. And to make a longer story short, I didn't get to say goodbye to her. And then I never saw her again. I would not have realized this if I had not taken it upon myself to free write, and the subconscious kicked in, and I discovered this, and I wrote a poem about it, and I never had a dream about her again. So that's where, and so then I discovered a poetry therapy organization in Columbus, got involved in that, and then eventually became the director of the Ohio Poetry Therapy Association at one time,
oh,
and was very much involved. And I did work through prisons and some other organizations through art therapy. My sister is head of the art therapy program at Wayne State University, so I'm very much involved and have a kind of a keen understanding of how the creative arts are healing tools.
mhm. You received Educator of the Year twice. at the
Oh,
high school where you taught the most or something. You must
yes,
love teaching. So I gather you're retired from the public school,
I am.
but you continue to teach through these workshops, right?
I guess you can take the teacher out of the traditional school, but you can't take me out of teaching completely. It's in my blood. My father was a teacher, and I love my craft. I love literature. I love reading. I love writing, particularly poetry. I love memoir. I love the arts. So I am passionate about what
Totally.
I talk about.
I get it for sure. Um, I found it interesting that you were associate editor of Pudding Magazine. I remember that magazine, I think, all the way back to last century. So is it still
Yes.
going? And how long were you involved in that magazine?
I was involved in it from 1983 until Jennifer Bosveld passed away. So, and she passed away in 2013. And Jen Bosveld was one of my very best friends, and she actually was she was the person that had created the Ohio Poetry Therapy Association. So that's how I originally met her. And then I got involved with Pudding Magazine in various
Fine, fine.
forms. Yes, absolutely dearly loved her. And she taught me so much about poetry, poetry therapy. I owe so much of what is so meaningful to my life through Jennifer. And I talked about poetry and how synchronistic it is. Jen Bosveld, my first year of teaching at Briggs High School, my first year, one of her sons was in my class. And just everything is so interconnected. It's unbelievable.
Do you have a poem to share with us?
I do. And this is very unusually short for me because I have a tendency to talk a lot, and I have a tendency to write longer poems. But this is a short one. And my parents' cat was in the will for me, and she just passed away a couple weeks ago at age 26. This is about their cat. Emotional underbelly. It is raining now. We listen to it, each other's breathing. My parents' 20-year-old black cat owns me now, uses every inch of my body as her landscape for pause for naps. She insists we must touch each time I'm on the red couch. As I lounge, writing on a yellow legal pad, she maneuvers her body under my left elbow, making it more difficult for me to continue this poem, her intention.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I got two kitties of my own and know what you're talking about. Well, thank you so much, Sandra. It's nice to talk with you and get to know you a tad better.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure for me. Thank you so much, Belinda.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.